Hi, folks, welcome back. I hope you're all doing well. If you ask any modern office worker what they most hate about the environment, it is pretty likely that one of the top answers is going to be email. It is, of course, a fixture of modern work. The paper I'm looking at today tries to give us a glimpse of what a work world without email might look like and what its effects would be. It has one of the most brilliant and evocative titles that I've seen in a paper, A Pace Not Dictated by Electrons. And that was a quote that came directly from one of the study's participants. So basically what they're doing in this paper is performing an empirical study of an actual workplace office where they took 13 workers and cut off their email for a whole work week for 5 days, and then examined what the effects of those were, both at a quantitative as well as qualitative level. The central problem with email as we use it today is that it is used for so many things. Obviously, we use it for communication, but it is also a to-do inbox in which the entire world gets to put to-dos for you without any back pressure whatsoever. It's also used for archiving and looking up historical information, and of course as a means for assigning and delegating tasks. As Sherry Turkle put it very eloquently, we don't do email, our email does us. Let's get into the details of the study itself. The authors conducted this study in what they call a large scientific research organization, and they found 13 people who volunteered for this study. To establish a baseline, they first observed all these participants for 3 days with email, and following that for 5 days without email. And what data did they collect? They collected both qualitative data using ethnographic methods as well as a bunch of computer data and sensor-based data like heart rate and so on. So what did they find? Here is a table of activity both in the baseline email condition and the experimental no email condition. You'll see that in terms of statistical significance, the study found that people did much more out-of-office work-related activities in the no email condition. They also found that in the no email condition, they did a lot more meta work. And meta work here is defined as work that is not related to a single project but associated with managing all the projects. Qualitatively, the participants did not seem to mind being cut off from email. They still managed to stay connected with all their colleagues using many other modalities, things like face-to-face meetings or telephone calls. And the authors found that by the 5th day, most of these participants were not instinctively trying to check their email. The other data they collected was how long participants stayed in one window when they were working on their computers and how frequently they switched between windows. And this is really interesting. You'll see that in the no email condition, the duration of them staying in a window is almost twice that of when they were checking email. And also the frequency of switching windows goes way down, almost by half, compared to the baseline when they were checking emails. So this shows that in the absence of email, people spend a lot more time focusing on one window and a lot less time switching between windows. They also collected data on heart rate variability, which is used as an indicator of stress. The lower the heart rate variability, the higher the stress. And again, we see that on average, heart rate variability in the email condition is lower than that in the no email condition. Again, remember, lower variability means higher stress. So there's more stress when you're checking email. So that was the quantitative analysis. It showed people focusing more. It showed people having lower stress. Equally as interesting is the qualitative side of things, the things that people said about how they felt and how they operated in these two conditions. There was a lot of sentiment around how people felt that email causes them to lose agency, how their work revolves around email, and that makes it very unmanageable, and they feel like they don't have control over it. The participants mentioned that when there was no email, they spent much more face-to-face time with their colleagues, and this to them was a positive change. We saw this in the data, but even quantitatively, the participants mentioned that they were able to spend much more time on a task and focus more deeply on their work. The participants did express that the one disadvantage of being without email was the feeling of being cut off. They felt disconnected from the rest of the organization, from their colleagues. They didn't feel as productive because doing email feels like doing work, and they felt isolated. Part of that was that they felt like they were not living up to the norm that email must be responded to quickly. But some people also felt like a lot of the email that they had been getting was either not important or that the senders were sending them somewhat frivolously. For example, one participant used to get a lot of emails which were tasks from his superiors. But when there was no email, his bosses found other ways to get those tasks done, and maybe they did it themselves rather than shooting off a quick email. Combined with the finding that in the no email condition, multitasking was greatly reduced, it does beg the question of how much information that email carries is actually necessary or desirable. Given that it took just 5 days to see the effects of reduced stress, the authors suggest maybe having email vacations in order to reduce stress in the workplace. The authors also suggest doing email in batches. That might be more efficient. But overall, they found that the participants noticed that the pace of work had slowed, that they were focusing more, and that they much preferred this new mode. And the title of the paper is taken from the quote from one of the participants who said that not having email allowed him to do his work at a pace not dictated by electrons. Note that the authors are not trying to make the case for getting rid of email altogether. Their goal was to study the effects of email and come up with suggestions for how to deal with email better. So that was a quick look at a paper that actually did the experiment to see what work without email would look like and what the effects of that would be. I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you next time. Thank you very much.